Hello, welcome back to another episode of Turning Pages podcast brought to you by RMIT Vietnam Library. My name is Giang, your host, and for today we will have one of the coolest staff in RMIT University to join us today. He is the manager of RMIT Job Shop, and let's welcome Mr. Eric Asato.
Hello,
Hi,
Gigi.
Mr. Eric, how are you today?
Pretty good. It's getting hot season, so I'm a little bit sweaty from eating lunch outside, but happy to be here.
Yeah, so how do you feel while we are here? Like, is it the first time you're doing a podcast or?
I guess a podcast, but I've been interviewed before for different video clips. So yeah, I do feel a little nervous as we're in the library and I'm not sure if I'm too loud or should talk quieter, but yes, happy to be here.
Yourself.
Okay.
Before we get started, we will have a little challenge for you. So since people here are really curious about you and they may not know a lot about you, could you please do another more detailed introduction about yourself? But you have to include the word book inside your introduction. So can you do it?
Sure. So hello everyone, I'm Eric Asato, and I'd like to introduce the autobiography book, Introduction of Eric. I'm originally from Seattle, USA. I'm the third generation Japanese born in America. So even my grandfather fought in World War II for America, not for Japan. So when I moved to Vietnam, it was maybe in 2009, 14 years ago now. And before in America, I worked in different fields from fundraising, sales, accounting, and then I was affected by the global financial crisis in 2008. And that's when I came to Vietnam to explore business opportunities. So the book of Eric continues in Vietnam when I investigated food tourism businesses, realized in 2009 it was too risky to start a business, law not always followed, and what I did see were opportunities in education. So fast forward 14 years later, I've been at RMIT for 12 years, first teaching English, and then moving to the careers department to support students with their career journeys and career education. And you can always stop by the job shop, talk with the job shop assistants and this team for more conversations about your career.
So that's a long road from USA to Vietnam, huh? So I can see you have a really huge passion for books, right? So let's jump right into our very first topic, shall we? So I want to ask you, when were the times that books had helped you to save your life or have shaped your life?
I would say shaping my life. So from primary school, junior high, up to about 16 years old, I really enjoyed reading biographies or autobiographies about sports stars, sports athletes.
So can you introduce to the audience this book?
Yes, I asked the library, do you have any biographies of Michael Jordan or any baseball, basketball stars? And they said, not really, but we do have this book called Choice, Not Change, about college basketball. And for me, I'm actually going to borrow this book for the session. What I really enjoy about biographies of sports stars is I'm inspired by the hard work, the dedication the athletes commit to their sports, to their profession, and it motivates me to say if I work as hard as they do, that maybe I could be an expert in the field. Growing up, I thought I would be a professional basketball player. Played basketball almost every day, read all the basketball biographies. But then I stopped growing about age 16 and realized maybe I cannot become a professional basketball player. But I'm still really enjoy the sports camaraderie, the teamwork, and the passion behind sports. So I'm looking forward to reading this book and taking it home with me today.
So I believe that the reason why you choose to read autobiography is because you can immerse yourself into that book, right? So you can relive your dream right? So besides sports, do you have any kind of different types of book that you may want to read?
Yes. So later on in high school and in university, my favorite books were about professional development, self-development. So books are even audio tapes from speakers like Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, Daniel Goleman, talking about emotional intelligence. I really enjoyed reading about these books because I never learned them in high school, or those topics in high school or even university classes. So these practical, they call them maybe self-help books, were really the genre that I enjoyed in especially university times and after university as I transitioned to full-time work.
When you read the books from those authors, can you tell me that how do you convey the message into your personal life and career development? Or you just find something valuable, insightful, and you just apply it to your life?
Yes, both. So one example is this book, The Startup of You, by Reid Hoffman, who's one of the co-founders of LinkedIn. And for me, I've always enjoyed social media, and LinkedIn is a professional social media. When I started my profile, probably back in 2005, maybe you were only a few years old back then.
Yeah.
But I said, oh, okay, so this is my online brand, my professional identity. And the Startup of You really transformed my mindset to think, really, I am an employer, I am a business, that I have to treat my career like I am the employer, the business owner, that I'm not just an employee. And so I highly recommend this book to have that entrepreneurial mindset. You don't have to start up an official business and sell products online or start your own TikTok channel, but it helps you think of how to really solve problems, think like a business, and treat your career like a business does. How can I satisfy the customers, the clients, the stakeholders? And I really recommend The Startup of You, a LinkedIn book.
I will definitely add it to my bucket list.
Yes.
So I can see that books have shaped your life through your childhood until now, right? Can you share me how has your perception of identity and self-awareness has been influenced by the book you have read?
Well, when you bring that question to mind, or when I saw it, I asked the library, do you have the book Leading with Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman? The library introduced HBR, Emotional Intelligence, Empathy, which I haven't read, but it does include Daniel Goleman, who is one of the first researchers of emotional intelligence. With emotional intelligence, I took a course in my MBA in 2007. It was the first time I learned about the topic, EQ, and how important it is, even more than IQ. And it really struck me to learn more and apply it in my life. With emotional intelligence, it's first identifying your own emotions. How am I feeling? Controlling them. If I say, oh, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, take some deep breaths. Don't respond to the email angrily. And then also identifying the emotions in others and being able to communicate with others in an effective manner. And I know with RMIT and university students, they're also very interested in emotional intelligence. So I highly recommend to read any book of Daniel Goleman or take a LinkedIn learning course and try to apply some of those tips in your daily life.
As a career manager, how do you apply those knowledge from the book, like emotional intelligence, to your clients or to any students in the school?
So yes, come visit the job shop. We can have a discussion, a chat about your career, what are your influences, what are some of your goals. If you say, I don't have any goals, we can discuss and create some goals together. Actually, one of the influences in my life is one of the reasons why I'm here today in Vietnam and not Seattle, is when I was doing the MBA, I had a mentor who introduced different aspects of work-life balance, different aspects of experiencing work in different parts of the world. When I was laid off in the financial crisis, he gave me this book, which is quite famous. It's not 100% true. I don't think it is, but it's The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. And as I was reading this book, it gave me different perspectives on my life, on work life. Growing up Asian American, having kind of traditional Asian parents, study, 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 work, work, work. I didn't really think what was important in my life. It's more to life than just work and study. And the 4-Hour Workweek showed how the author was able to pursue different passions and really live his life while still working. He claimed at the time 4 hours a week. It's probably a lot more than just 4 hours, but it showed me that there's more to life than, say, my typical bubble in Seattle with my life experience. So my mentor shared with me different books, shared with me different life perspectives, and really influenced me on my decision to go outside my comfort zone of my hometown of Seattle and move to Vietnam.
So what about your self-identity? So do you think that books help you hone your professional identity? And what kind of book usually would you go look up for?
Yes, I have to say, really, books are just one influence of my self-identity. You have the family, the friends, teachers, mentors, your environment that you grew up in. But one thing that all working professionals need to do, not just in university, but especially after university, is lifelong learning. So for me, when I came to RMIT and I realized, wow, we have a library full of books, we have wonderful workshops, wonderful online learning resources, it's just a great environment to continuously learn. And one of the, it's not so recent anymore, but Bill Burnett and Dave Evans from Stanford University, they wrote the book Design Your Life, using design thinking methods, acting and thinking like a designer, but to design your own life. And this is a book that really showed how different concepts in academia, like design thinking, can be applied to our personal lives. We have run workshops on designing your life, designing your career, and it really treats your life like a product where you're saying, what problem do I want to solve? So first you need to empathize with the customers, but in this case, it's empathizing with yourself. What are my strengths? What are my interests? What are my skills? What are my values? What's important to me? And once you understand the customers, or in this case yourself, you can better start to explore your interests. What are you curious about? So are you curious about being a designer? Curious about being a financial analyst? Curious about being a human resource officer? Curious about being a librarian? How can I gain experience in that? So you kind of prototype and test. So if you are interested in being a librarian, talk with the librarians. Say, what do you do on a daily basis? What did you do what degree did you study? You'll find a lot of working professionals did not study a degree directly related to what they're doing today. So design thinking in a nutshell is something where you're first empathizing with the customer. For designing your life, it's empathizing with yourself. And then prototyping, testing. You're also ideating, thinking, what are some possibilities? And once you have those possibilities listed out, you can think, how can I experience or test them out? You can find a mentor. We have the career mentoring program with RMIT. You can talk to family members who are doing that job. talk to your older brothers, older sisters, alumni who are working in the industry. That's how you are testing the products or testing your career out. And then it's going and evaluating, doing it. Maybe I didn't explain that very perfectly, but I highly recommend the design thinking process for designing your life, designing products. It'll help you think outside the box and really try things out, test it out. And if you find out it's not for you, cross it off the list. What are you curious about? Try it again, try something else.
So,
You may have to edit parts of that.
so as you mentioned before, that you have been trying lots of things before you moved to education, right? So, have you ever applied the design thinking process to choose the right career for you? And did any book that helped you?
Yes. So, end of last year. So, the end of last year, oftentimes, end of the year, you kind of set goals for what you are hoping to achieve in the new year. And from the Design Your Life book, they have what's called Odyssey maps. And Odyssey maps is, Odyssey is going on a journey. Back in the Greek times, they would go on these big boats on a journey overseas, not really knowing what to expect, but overcoming difficulties in the journey. So one of the concepts is treating your career like a journey, that there is no straight line where you start as an intern, executive, supervisor, manager. Very rare you stay in the same company or same career.
Very cool.
So with the Odyssey maps, it's having a plan A to say, okay, I've done an MBA, I've done career development training. What can I do with my career path so far? That's logical. Plan B is, okay, maybe I cannot become the director of an innovation center. What is an alternative that's very similar in that path? Maybe it is staying as a careers advisor, staying in RMIT to work in the different career development aspects. It can be a plan B. But then you have a plan Z, which is, what if money didn't matter? What if I did not have to have a career with a stable income? Maybe I'm retired. What would I do? Would I start my own education NGO with my son? What kind of education NGO would we do? Something around sports. So having those different plan A, B, C was very great to reflect and to really think what's important long-term in my life. Part of the Odyssey plan was also kind of writing a letter to yourself. Writing a letter to yourself from 10 years in the future. So I would say, oh, dear Eric, you are now 55 years old, and thank you so much for keeping in good health, exercising in the mornings at the gym, playing sports with your son, Wilson. And it was just a letter reflecting on yourself in imagining 10 years from now. About 6 months later, my son found that letter in my bag. He said, "What's this?" He starts reading it, and he's 8 years old now, but he was 7 at the time. And he said, "Oh, this is funny. It's talking about us in the future." And as he was reading it, I realized I was following those goals, those ideas. I was exercising in the morning, going to the gym. I was playing sports with my son. I was following kind of the path. And that was just an exercise from the Designing Your Life book.
Wow, that's really cool.
I highly recommend students to borrow the book or to come to our workshops that the Careers offers through Personal Edge, career mentoring programs, and the Job Shop.
Okay, so really, I'm really grateful for your sharing on these topics. I think that your study in high school or secondary school had really differentiate from now, right? So how can you compare the experience of the two periods, and how do you feel about them?
It's amazing because back, I was just sharing with my mentee about this a couple weeks ago, that when I was in university from 2000 to 2004, we didn't have Turnitin. We didn't have plagiarism software. We had computers. You printed out your paper, printed it out, and handed it to the lecturer. But we didn't have the software technology to identify plagiarism. I'm sure it was a lot more prevalent 20 years ago than it is today. We didn't have LinkedIn Learning, which is a very valuable resource. For me, what I did was go to the library, read the books. Also, we had audio tapes. So instead of podcasts, we had cassette tapes, which you press play, fast forward, rewind, listen again. So one of the audiobooks that I listened to was Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins talking about, he's a life coach. I was wondering, what should I do after university? My mom had the audio cassette tapes of Tony Robbins and setting goals. So I listened to it, did the workbook. I really miss having the audio cassettes. But today I can just go online onto Spotify, onto LinkedIn Learning, and have the resource on demand. So I think the thing that's changed is the access to resources online, on demand. If you want to learn computer programming, I saw this book in the library just coming up today, Programming with Java. My father was a computer analyst. He used to have thick books on HTML, C++, Java. Today, you just go to YouTube and learn how to do the computer programming through the tutorials online. So, access to education, it's a gift, but it's also difficult because you really have to focus and commit. And when you have so many options online, it's becoming harder and harder to commit and focus. So the ones that are able to really dedicate their craft, their expertise, spend the hours focusing on the topic, they are ones who will become real experts in their field.
So do you recommend any tools or online platforms, resources that the youngster right now that they may need for advance in their career? So do you have any in mind?
Yes, RMIT students are lucky to have LinkedIn Learning subscription through the RMIT library. Once they graduate, they will have to subscribe on their own, pay a monthly subscription. But it's a good way to really test things out, try it out. So like with design thinking, prototyping, testing, if you say, oh, I'm an international business student, I'm interested in marketing, but I've never taken only principles of marketing course. Go on to LinkedIn Learning, take the digital marketing learning pathway. If you are able to complete it, you dig deeper, you build your expertise outside the university classroom. It's a good way to test it out. If you take the course on LinkedIn Learning and you start falling asleep, then it's probably a sign you won't have the motivation, interest to develop the skill to do it in the workplace. So LinkedIn Learning is really my go-to place if you're curious about any topic. It could be something, a soft skill like time management, conflict resolution, conflict in teams, what to do when a teammate disappears. You have these tips, online video courses, online resources, but it's up to us, the student or the user, to apply it in real life.
So aside from LinkedIn Learning, do you have any other online resources and platform? And how do you choose the right sources for you? Like, I mean, in nowadays they have plenty of fish in the sea, right? But there's maybe some fake news or some false information. So how do you choose the right courses, the right information to apply in your career?
Many different ways, but one thing that comes to mind is every semester we run a express mentoring activity where we invite mentors from the mentoring program to come and share their experience with students. but I also take it as a learning opportunity. I can talk with mentors who are experienced in the field. Last year, there was an alumni mentor who works in as a business analyst, digital technologies, and he shared every employee in our business, in our organization, has to take this Coursera generative AI course. This was last year when ChatGPT first launched.
Oh.
So which course was it again? Oh, from Vanderbilt University, Coursera. Let me try it out. So I take advice from mentors who are experienced in the field, but also from the students, from you guys when you share resources and say, oh, have you ever tried Notion? I said, no, I haven't. What is it? Oh, wow, that's very nice. Let me try it out. So one free resource. You don't have to be an RMIT student to take advantage of this online learning opportunity is with 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔, 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.com. They collect courses from companies. The companies are the ones who create the virtual experience. And these are trainings that they give their interns, that they give their fresh employees. And it's real. So it's not made from an academic perspective, it's made from a business perspective to say,
would you rather choose nowadays learning resources or back then learning resources?
oh, back then, like when we were using sticks and writing in the dirt, or like when I was a student, is that back then?
Yeah.
I guess a combination of both. For me, what I love in today's modern era is that, yeah, we have access to basically anything we want to learn about. If we have the focus, the dedication, I could learn computer programming. I don't need a big fat book to do it. But with that, there's just so many options out there. So having somebody to talk to, it can be your friend, your lecturer, mentor, the careers staff, just to discuss, where should I focus? Where should I focus upgrading my skills? Should I learn Power BI or Tableau, SQL? Is it necessary in my career? Talking to people who are doing the job will have very good advice and guidance. 20 years ago, we didn't have access to as many online resources. We would have to read encyclopedia books before Wikipedia. We didn't have generative AI just even last year. I do miss the times when I could really just focus on a book. But I have to appreciate nowadays where I can go on to ChatGPT, ask some simple questions, and get guidance from the generative AI. But very important to still have the human connection.
Yeah, so your answer also leads to the last topic of today. So as you mentioned it, we have plenty of sources that we may access it everywhere, anytime we like. So do you still think that printed books are now necessary and still relevant to your personal life and your career development?
Yes, especially now that I'm a father. So with my son having access to the bookshelf, having physical books where he does have to spend time focusing on the printed paper, on the printed words, rather than YouTube videos, video games. Just the other day, or last night, he was asking, Dad, what does envious mean? He's reading Big Nate. And he says, oh, what's envious? Versus maybe if he was watching a YouTube video and they mention it, he may not stop and ask, Dad, what's envious? What does that mean? So having books, printed books, gives the reader time to reflect, time to put themselves in the shoes of others. I think it helps us empathize with different people, with different cultures, versus watching a video. We're more passive learners. So I hope books, printed books, do not disappear. I know at RMIT in the classroom, you don't have any printed books as required readings, but yeah, print it out on a printer, keep it. Printed books are here to stay, hopefully.
In my opinion, digital books are really convenient as if I have an iPad, I can install like thousands of books inside the iPad and I can bring it everywhere. So it's like a digital library. Yeah, but I still appreciate the printed books as I experience the feeling of flipping the pages. How do you balance the convenience of using digital resources and the experience of reading a physical book?
I have to be honest, I don't read as many physical books now as I did in the past. The last book I did read was from my colleague, 𝗏𝗏. I saw on her desk, she had this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, F-U-C-K. And yeah, I really enjoyed just reflecting on this book. It reminds me a lot of Buddhism. I was raised Buddhist. And I really do wish that I had more dedicated time for reading. Oftentimes, it's not until I go on a holiday and I'm stuck in a train or a bus or an airplane that I get the book and read. Yeah, right now, I currently don't have a balance, but I can commit when I do go on the vacations, the long trips, that I always bring a book with me on those trips so that I can read and enjoy having that freedom to read physical books. I should commit on camera that maybe from now on I will read more often. Currently what I'm reading is Learning Vietnamese through English. So that book is on my bookshelf. When my son is reading his books from the library, I will take that book and read along with them.
Oh, that's so cool.
For students, yeah, maybe you do have a dedicated hour, dedicated 30 minutes. That doesn't have to be an hour, dedicated 15 minutes to just sit and read, get away from the screen.
So as a career manager, does the format, digital or print, affect or impact to your career or anything related to your career development?
Not really, because right now, books, it's not a textbook that we read. It's more books for following your own interest. For me, I love professional development books. I enjoy autobiographies or real stories. And if it is something that is for my professional development, it will probably be online articles. The online articles are faster to publish. They don't take a long time to get publishing through a book publisher, but they can post it on social media. Anybody can be an author. So I think that's the value of the digital, is it's fast, you have access to it. And as long as you are using your critical thinking and not believing everything you read online, fact-checking before you spread the news, that it's a valuable resource.
Unfortunately, this is the last topic for today. So before we conclude the show, can you tell the audience some message that you want to convey about career development or career growth?
It just starts with curiosity. What are you curious about? Go explore it. It can be through a traditional book, it can be through an article online, it can be through LinkedIn Learning, podcast. Just explore. I'm not saying you have to read a book. Just be curious, explore, and continue learning.
So this is the end of our episode of Turning Pages podcast for today. Please stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you and goodbye.